The railway disappeared a long time ago, but a magnificent road connects the town with the outside world. Luderitz still lies well off the beaten track, stranded in the desert between two enormous diamond-producing regions, which are prohibited zones and heavily guarded. The majority of these streets are still sand, and the houses are painted in bright colors to break the monotony of the landscape. The town is surrounded by almost endless diamond deposits, but these are transported directly to South Africa and have very little influence on the local economy. Nonetheless, Luderitz remains prosperous thanks to the same activity which was the reason it was founded: fishing. Due to the cold Benguela current, these waters are the largest, richest fishing grounds in the South Atlantic. The entire city owes its living to the hake, lobsters and seaweed, which provide work for over 5,000 people. This industry is, after diamonds, the second largest source of income for the Namibian government. But long before the arrival of the white man, a nomadic people once to be found throughout the continent of Africa had sought final refuge in the Namib and Kalahari deserts. They were probably the last survivors of the hunter people that had been persecuted and displaced by the Bantu tribes who arrived from the north. Those who did not manage to escape into the desert were exterminated or enslaved, first by the Bantus and the Hottentots themselves, and later by the European conquerors, who rather contemptuously named them Bushmen. In the sacred mountains which are home to the spirits, the drawings carved into the rock are irrefutable evidence that 6,000 years ago the Bushmen already inhabited these lands. Nowadays, the majority of the 100,000 Bushmen that live in the Kalahari Desert are to be found in remote ghettos in subhuman conditions. Most of their cultural heritage has been lost. They now rarely hunt and subsist on the tiny benefits they receive from the government. There is a great deal of alcoholism. It's the only way they have of killing time. The authorities are trying to introduce agriculture and livestock farming, but these people who, for over 20,000 years, have been hunter-gatherers are finding it very difficult to adapt to this lifestyle. Some of them work for the white men or for neighboring tribes as hunters, farm workers or herdsmen in conditions of near slavery in exchange for food, clothes and tobacco. Historically, the neighboring tribes have treated them as pariahs with no rights. Since 1992, Amnesty International has been denouncing the abuses and torture they suffer at the hands of the military. Little by little, the situation is getting better, as in Botswana, for example, which in 1998 enjoyed the strongest economic growth in the world. But still, the Bushmen are the most extreme example of the poverty and underdevelopment which has not been eradicated. Little by little, they are losing ground, their territory reduced to an ever smaller area. Fortunately, however, there are still families who refuse to give up their culture and their traditions and try to survive in the most remote regions of the Kalahari. Chonwati is a small settlement inhabited by just 4 families, a total of 14 people. The Bushmen live in small, scattered groups, adapting to whatever the land can offer. Kushai, Samgao, Tuka and Bo are the heads of the Chonwati family. Several days ago they ran out of meat, the basis of their diet, and so have decided to set out to try to catch a hare in the area around the village. Politically and socially, the Bushmen are organized into groups with no designated leader, though authority is assumed by the oldest or the most skilled of the active members. Each group is made up of a number of hunters, generally related, and their wives and children. The group normally moves around a limited territory, which they don't leave. This is their hunting ground, and though the limits are not well defined, and there is no specific obligation to respect them, other groups would never enter, so no one needs to defend them. The technique they use to catch the hares is simple but extremely ingenious. Their only tool is a long, very flexible rod with a hook at one end, which they introduce into a burrow. When the pole has been pushed all the way in, the men place the end against their cheeks. If they can feel the rod vibrating, it means an animal has been trapped on the hook. No luck this time. The four friends return to the settlement with empty hands. The extreme drought means the situation in the settlement is desperate. The only thing they have left to eat is millet, from which they make a bread, but this is not very nutritious. However, they know that during the dry season, hunting is much easier than in the rainy season. Kushai, Samgao, Tuka and Bo have decided to go hunting. At this time of year, the animals all gather around the few pools that still have water, and in all likelihood, they will be able to hunt something decent to eat. Namibia is one of the African countries with the greatest variety of wildlife. In the Etosha National Park alone, the largest in the country, covering an area the size of Belgium, 114 species of mammals and 340 different types of bird live. The heat is absolutely unbearable and the large pachyderms are hurrying to get into the water. The big cats, just like the Bushmen, know that hunting is plentiful at this time of year. By the watering holes, the lions lie in wait, ready to attack, protected and camouflaged in the shade of a tree. Possible candidates for a swift death must be on the alert and are extremely jumpy. In December, the first rains will arrive and will continue uninterrupted to the end of March. During these months, a thick green blanket of grass covers the vast plains. The mammals spread out, finding a space in which to give birth, and once again life will return to Etosha. But for the moment, every drop of water essential for survival is precious. Only the large predators will regret the coming of the rains, for then Etosha will become one enormous quagmire, and in those conditions, hunting is an exhausting task. The elephants have to come here every day for their mud bath to get rid of parasites. They are the masters of the pool, and when they arrive, all the other animals know they must move aside. The Bushmen also fear and respect them, and will always try to avoid them on their hunting expeditions.